Let's jump out to the D&M Leasing Hotline and welcome to the program, NBA writer for CBS Sports, friend of the program, and a tremendous follow on Twitter, X, or whatever the hell it is you're calling it, the one, the only, Mr. Sam Quinn. Sam, how are you on this haiku hump day?
I'm good. We're hitting the most fun part of the schedule. We've just got a couple more weeks of tanking and resting up to go before the games start to get really good.
We certainly do, and Blake and I are ready to get this thing rocking and rolling with you. And, of course, what got this whole thing started is, like I said, obviously I follow you on Twitter and certainly enjoy the stuff that you put out there. And, of course, you had an interesting tweet today that Blake and I are ready to talk about. You said 3 teams that need to blow this whole thing up. The Bucks and the Suns, 2 of them, which I don't think anybody has an issue with. But the one that got a little bit of pushback, at least, and, of course, obviously I follow more DFW folks, is the Mavericks that you included in that list, in that group. Por qué, muchacho?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have to go back to early February. If Luka Doncic was still on the team, we'd be having a very different conversation. I mean, they were coming off of a finals trip, and I think this year's roster, at least on paper, was better than last year. So if they hadn't made that trade, you generally feel pretty good about their future. They made quite possibly the worst trade in NBA history. That ship has sailed. What I'd be really afraid of if I were a Mavericks fan right now is that they're going to waste the next 2 or 3 years trying to prove that they were right when they clearly weren't, right? Like, the last thing you should want to do right now when you're an aging roster with Kyrie Irving presumably out for most, if not all of next year, is to sink more picks, more money, try to get more veterans in there next year just so you can maybe lose in the second round instead of the first. Like, the way I'm looking at the Mavericks right now, and I'm sure they disagree, is that with their first-round picks owed out to other teams in 27, 28, 29, and 30, is that next year is their last chance to tank, their last chance to get a young, long-term franchise player. And if they don't take it, given the injuries that Kyrie has dealt with and Anthony Davis has dealt with his entire career, how old he is, how old some of those other role players like Klay Thompson on that roster are, how expensive that team is, and frankly, the lost confidence we should all have in Nico Harrison right now, things could get really dark for the Mavericks, right? Especially when you look around their region of the country. The Rockets are looking great. The Spurs have Wembanyama. The Thunder might be starting a dynasty this year, and they owe first-round picks to all of those teams. If they don't figure this out now, there's a chance that they spend the rest of this decade sending young stars to all of their closest geographic rivals. It's a disaster. It's been a disaster since the moment they traded Luka. And the way I look at it is that ship has sailed. It's a sunk cost. You can't look at Anthony Davis and be like, he's our path to salvation. He's our only star post-Luka. No, there is no post-Luka future anymore. You have to look at this rationally. There is no championship coming in the next few years. Anthony Davis is not going to lead you as a contender. You're not going to get Kyrie back in March and have him suddenly look like an all-star again in May. The next few years are gone. What you need to be thinking about is how can we get a young, long-term franchise guy in the building? Your 2 ways of doing that. Number 1, you tank for one next year. And number 2, you trade Anthony Davis for a haul of draft assets and young guys while you have the chance, because given his injury history, given his age, that window might not be open for very long. You take that, you start over, and you admit we made the wrong decision. We shouldn't have traded Luka. It was a bad move. They'll never do it, but I want to stress, I'm talking about what I would do if I were running the Mavericks. And if I were running the Mavericks, Nico Harrison would have been fired the moment he brought up the idea of the Luka trade. He's not going to do it. He's going to stubbornly go down with this ship. But if they're thinking rationally, they've got to blow this thing up. They've got nothing right now.
Sam, you speak with a lot of passion, so I know you know what you're talking about. And I think a lot of people listening are in the same boat as you of wanting the Mavericks to figure this out and right the ship. And you kind of gave your little process of what you think would have to happen for them to blow it up. My question to you is going inside of the mind of Mark Cuban, Dumont, Nico. How does everybody that was formerly associated with the Dallas Mavericks and currently associated with Dallas Mavericks, do you think they are in a similar boat of, hey, let's figure out how to do this? Or do you not even see that on the schedule of we're going to ride this out? We got AD. It is what it is. The fans and us media are just going to have to deal with it and just watch this team rotten right in front of us. Or do you think they could do a turn and maybe do your idea?
I think the important thing to remember with NBA teams and front offices is that they're run by human beings, right? And what do human beings hate doing more than anything? Admitting that they're wrong. Mm-hmm. Patrick Dumont and Nico Harrison were wrong. It's that simple. I think almost anybody who has observed the moves that they've made over the last 2 months can sit here and objectively say they were wrong, and you don't have much faith in their ability to run this team moving forward. But that's us saying that. We're not the ones who made those decisions. They're looking at this saying, we know something that you don't. We think that we made the right decision, and we're going to spend the next few years trying to prove it. So I don't think there's any chance they're going to take my path. What I suspect they're going to do is they're going to re-sign Kyrie Irving over the offseason. And look, maybe he's back in March next year. Maybe he doesn't play at all next year. I don't know. They're looking at this saying, we're going to get Kyrie back eventually. We'll contend with him. In the meantime, we have Davis. We got some assets from the Luka trade. We got another first-round pick. We got Max Christie. Let's go out and try to add more veterans and try to win with this team. I don't think that's a good idea. I could not be more clear about that. But I'm not thinking the way that they're thinking. Frankly, I don't know if they're thinking this way, but I think the reality we have to acknowledge is that Nico Harrison knows that if he doesn't prove that they can win with Anthony Davis, he's probably going to go down as one of the worst general managers in NBA history, right? That's
Sports
not a legacy
history.
Anybody wants to have. Nobody wants to be remembered as the guy who traded Luka Doncic and ruined his team's fortunes for the next 5-10 years. For them, this is almost an ego thing as much as it's a basketball thing, right? They don't want to admit they're wrong. They're going to try to prove that they're right. I don't think that's going to go well for them, but they're human beings, and that's what human beings tend to do.
I want to dive into what you said in the middle of that of re-signing Kyrie Irving, just to kind of do some house cleaning. Let our fans know what that number would be on his player option, how likely he is to entertain other teams, or if you think he is going to be a Dallas Maverick next year, and kind of what the offseason could look like for the Dallas Mavs.
Yeah, so Kyrie has a player option. I believe it's either at or close to the max. It's in, that low mid 40 million per year number. Now, usually when you're talking about a guy who has a torn ACL at that age, they would never want to decline a player option of that money because you don't know that you're going to get it elsewhere on the open
Correct.
market. And there isn't cap space on the open market this year, right? It's Brooklyn, who I think we can say pretty safely isn't going to re-sign Kyrie. And then after that, there just isn't a lot of money out there. So under normal circumstances, you would assume that he would opt in and they would say, we'll figure it out later. I think he knows that he kind of has them over a barrel here, right?
Mm-hmm.
They traded Luka in part because they wanted to get on Kyrie's timeline. This is Nico Harrison telling the world, I believe in Kyrie. Kyrie is the star that I want to build around. If you were to lose him for free after all of that, look, you guys are in the city. The fans are in open revolt. I can't imagine how much worse it would get if you were to lose Kyrie. Now, you might say Kyrie has nowhere to go. What I would counter with is, let's be honest, Kyrie is not always the most rational actor, right? Say he opted out and the Mavericks said, we're only willing to give you this amount that, we're comfortable with and you're not comfortable with. Kyrie might be the kind of guy who would say, well, you know what? Screw you. I'm going to take the mid-level and I'm going to sign with the Lakers like I threatened to do a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the bad press the Mavericks would get if Kyrie did that? Or, if he sat out this season, went into free agency next year, the Lakers will have cap space in 26. I want to go reunite with Luka. Now, I'm not saying the Lakers are the likeliest possibility here, but what I am saying is that I don't think you can look at Kyrie Irving and say he's going to make the calm, rational decision because his recent forays into whether it's trade demands or free agency have not yielded those results. If you insult him with a low ball offer, he's inclined to do something unexpected. So he kind of has them over a barrel. They have to re-sign him. Do I think that's the best idea? Depends on the number. Probably not. I think he's going to go in and say, I want a max and I want it over multiple years. And I think they're going to kind of look at each other and kind of say, oh, that's very scary given the age and the injury and just how small guards tend to age into their mid-30s. but I think ultimately they're going to end up giving him more money than the market would probably suggest that he deserves because they just don't have a choice. I mean, what we're talking about how much they've damaged their situation without Luka. If they lost Luka and Kyrie within 5 months of each other, I mean, how much worse does it get than that?
Well, not just that, Sam, but to your point, if you go ahead and give big money, because the Mavericks made it clear they did not want to give big money to Luka because they didn't feel like with the way he takes care of himself and everything else that he was, that was going to be money well spent. How do you? So you're almost a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because if you come back and you give big money to Kyrie, who's had injuries and, like you said, is going to be in his early to mid 30s, like that's you're banking on a 6'2" guard in his mid 30s to take you to that next level in a league that keeps getting younger.
Well, there was some reporting after the Luka trade too that the Lakers were not interested in extending Anthony Davis at his current number. Now, a lot of things could have changed between then and when he became eligible, but you also probably have to look at this and say, whatever demands Anthony Davis makes are probably going to have to be met too. So ultimately, whatever you end up paying for Kyrie and for Davis, for two guys who are older and who have injury concerns, I feel a lot worse about that than I would have felt about paying Luka, right? Look, maybe Luka does have injury concerns. Maybe he does have health concerns. His conditioning, maybe that is a problem. I mean, we'll see how that bears out over time. If you're not willing to pay Luka, I just look at this and say, who are you willing to pay, right? Are you sitting here thinking we'd pay Wembanyama and we'd pay, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and that's it? I don't know. Would they be willing to pay Jokic? Jokic has conditioning concerns too. I guess Jokic doesn't miss games the way that Luka has, but it's a scary proposition when an ownership group or a front office kind of signals we're not willing to pay one of the 5 best players in the league, because what that really screams is, man, who are they willing to pay? Are they going to be willing to pay the luxury tax long term? Are they going to be willing to, take the steps you need to take to build a winner, especially in a league environment where OKC is presumably going to be an overwhelming favorite in the West for the foreseeable future. The Lakers have all of the resources that you need to build a winner. San Antonio has Wemby. They have 1 million picks. They have Fox. The West is not going to get easier in the coming years. And it's not clear how committed to winning this ownership group and front office are. So just on just about every level, I look at the Mavericks and I go, I am terrified for their future.
When you look at guys like Klay Thompson, Derek Lively, Gafford, some of the role players that play really well, even a PJ Washington, as far as I think most of those guys I just named have another year or two before we have any contract talks about them being free agents. But players can ask out as well, trade. Do you see any of that on the horizon? Do you think everybody on this team is bought in? Have you heard anything? Or is everybody ready to move on from the post-Luka era and just put on a uniform and put their best foot forward for the Mavericks moving forward?
We brought up Kyrie's leverage as a free agent. I just want to point out Daniel Gafford can be a free agent in the summer of 2026.
Yep.
The Los Angeles Lakers do not have a center and are currently, we'll see what this offseason bears, but are currently positioned to have a lot of cap space summer of 2026. I would imagine if Daniel Gafford has a good agent, he's saying to the Mavericks, extend me at a huge number or I am walking over to Luka in LA in 2026. So I would imagine that he will be very happy with the extension offer that he gets this offseason. I don't know that there hasn't been any reporting. I don't have any intel on, does Klay Thompson want to be there, for instance. I would imagine, frankly, that Klay Thompson wants to spend his final productive years in the NBA playing on a competitive team, and it doesn't feel like the Mavericks are going to be that team. I don't know if he's expressed that to anybody, but at the very least, I would think it probably makes more sense for him to be on another team. Lively is so young that I think no matter what, I've been of the opinion basically since he started his career that Lively is a future all-star, future all-defense center. I'm not giving him up. And I know there are going to be rumors do they chase Kevin Durant? Do they chase, this offensive star to balance out with AD, blah, blah, blah. Lively is the guy that I'm just holding on to for dear life and kind of telling myself, no matter how bad it gets, I want to have him. So I assume that Lively will be there long term. But any of the veterans, the truth is I just don't know because I don't know I don't know what their plan is going to be for the next few years. And the The reality we have to acknowledge here is that there has been reporting that Nico Harrison does not want to hold that job indefinitely. He's looking at maybe a shorter time frame, tried to go all in to win right now. Given the backlash here, given how disastrously these last 2 months have gone, I can't sit here and tell you exactly how long Nico Harrison's going to be running this team. And if anybody else is, their plans might be totally different than what the current front office thinks. So the truth is, I think almost anything is in play. The only thing I would say is so long as Nico Harrison is the GM, I think he's going to go down with the Anthony Davis ship, and they're going to try to win now. Do I think that's going to work? No, but I don't agree with pretty much anything they've done this season. So clearly where I stand and where the majority of the league stands versus where he stands are very different things.
All right, we got about a minute left. I got to ask you one other question, though, because this is a team that, if on paper you would think, all right, they would have leapfrogged the Mavericks by now. And I'm talking about the Phoenix Suns, who have been an abject disaster this season. That's another team that you talked about as far as they're going to need to blow it up. But it looks like they're going to take your advice. If one team will take your advice, it looks like it will be the Suns. Everybody thought Matt Ishbia was going to be different. Look, the guy's got money for days. He's a former basketball player. He's won an NCAA championship. So everybody's thinking, all right, this guy's got the pedigree that it takes. Like, this guy is going to be a good NBA owner, and he's been anything but. Minute or less, what the hell's going on in Phoenix, and is this guy going to get it right?
I'll say this for Matt Ishbia. He spends money. He's trying to win. He is committed. It's just that a lot of the time when a new owner takes over a team, he really wants to put a stamp on it. And as soon as he took over, they trade for Durant. A few months later, they trade for Beal. I think he was overexcited, wasn't quite thinking about the right things. Look at this Boston sale, this reporting that even though Wick Rusbach is selling the team, he's going to remain the governor of the team for the next 3 years. You feel a lot better about a team when the new owner can kind of ease their way in, learn the business, and not overwhelm themselves. I think it was really as simple as Matt Ishbia got excited, bought a team, and said, I own an NBA team. I'm going to go do something cool. I'm going to go trade for Kevin Durant. He went too fast. He got too aggressive. It came back to bite them, and those guys just don't fit together.
No, they certainly don't, and it's been one of the more interesting things to watch unfold over the course of the season. Where can they find you at on the old X and Twitter?
Sam Quinn CBS on Twitter, read CBSSports.com, listen to Beyond the Arc podcast. I'm on tomorrow at noon. Anything CBS Sports. We do great work.
No, you certainly do, Sam. Always love having you on. Let's do this again when the playoffs start.
Anytime, man.
My man.